I manage $1.6 million a month in ad spend for tech startups, and as a paid ads guy who has been building apps for the last year, I feel qualified to share exactly how paid ads works from an engineering perspective. Because at its core, it's an engineering problem. You have your inputs, which would be your creative, your budget, your landing page, your conversion tracking. You have the program, your ad platform's optimization running on top of your account, and you have your output, which is usually revenue. The entire job is to maximize that output for every dollar of input. So when ads feel broken for a SaaS company, it typically means one of the inputs is not working correctly, and 80% of the time it's actually the same input, which I'll share later. But first I'm going to show you how paid ads works end to end, and then we're going to go over how to code a system that runs it. By the end, you'll understand the domain and have a blueprint to engineer paid ads growth. All right, so first let's start with the map. The two core types of channels that you could advertise on are search and social. And what really separates them is the amount of intent that the audience has when you reach out to them, right? So, on the search side, we have Google, Bing, and YouTube is a bit of a hybrid because people go on there to doom scroll, but they also go on there to search specific, tutorials or answer specific questions. So I put YouTube in both because YouTube has both components. On social, it's more of a pattern interrupter. They're watching things they like and they don't have anything specific in mind. And then your ads show up and just bring awareness to something that they might want in the future. Almost every expensive mistake in paid ads is spending on a wrong level of intent. And intent itself also isn't just high or low, it's a scale. Eugene Schwartz broke down the 5 levels of it in Breakthrough Advertising. It goes from cold to red hot, and each one lives in a separate channel. At the bottom is unaware. They don't know they have a problem, so there's nothing for them to search on Google. The only way to reach them is to interrupt. Reach out to them through LinkedIn or Meta Ads with a problem that they just didn't put a name to. So this is pure demand creation, and it's the hardest to pull off, the hardest to measure, and the most expensive to do. Next is problem aware. Now they feel the pain, but they don't know a solution exists. So they start searching for the problem itself, and you could catch them with informational content or the same social targeting. This is a handoff point where the two categories of channels overlap. And also, you have to understand that the social platforms, they basically listen to their users all day. So they will hear all the problems that they're going through, all the phone calls they're having. It's really creepy, but you might have experienced it yourself where you keep thinking and talking about something new that has been interesting to you, and when you scroll on Instagram, you just see ads popping up for that or organic posts popping up for that. That's just the algorithm trying to keep you on the platform and serve you the most relevant things based on what it knows about you. Next is solution aware. They know there's categories of solutions out there, but they're not comparing any specific brands yet. They're just looking at the different approaches. So they search for the categories, so you show up in higher funnel keywords such as how do I solve this, or the best way to do X using Y method. Then there's product aware. They know your product exists, but they're just not sold on you yet. They're comparing you with other brands, and they're trying to basically decide on who to go with within the category of the solution that they decided to go with. This would involve a lot of brand campaigns with your brand keyword, and also competitor campaigns with your competitor keywords, and also some retargeting as well. And finally, there's most aware. They're ready to work with you, but they just need a little push to start right now. They search your name and just book a demo, usually directly. This is the cheapest, warmest click you'll ever get. So the pattern is very clear. The lower you are in the intent, the more you are on the social platforms trying to create demand. And then the higher your intent, the more you are on the search platforms trying to capture it. Where your audience sits on that scale determines which channel, what messaging, and the order in which you turn things on, which is exactly what we're going to talk about next. So when building a new account, I always like to start with high intent. The reason for that is very simple. If you can't prove product market fit when the prospect has the highest intent for the solution that they're looking for, then it's going to be a way bigger battle to try to get someone from being completely cold, not even knowing they have a problem, to then going through each of the stages we went through and picking you, right? Some people argue that through email nurturing, you could achieve that, but I'd say in my experience, especially for high ticket B2B, that's going to be super hard. So to target most aware and problem aware, I would be on Google ads and Bing ads. And I would be targeting exact and phrase match keywords, a high intent category keywords that carry commercial intent. Those are queries where someone is clearly shopping and not researching. The telltale signs, typically they have words like software, platform, pricing, and vendor. For compliance SaaS, that's exact match on compliance automation software or phrase match on SOC 2 compliance platform, right? They're very clear with what they're looking for. It's not, it's not a long tail keyword with a lot of questions like, hey, just give me this exact thing. Someone that's typing that has budget and they're comparing options right now. You're going to do one tight ad group per theme with keywords for that theme, the landing page just for that theme, and ads that speak directly to that theme. This is your product market fit test, the fastest and easiest way to see whether your offer and landing page actually converts. All right, so once you max out stage 1, stage 2 is going to be expanding in 2 directions. You loosen the match types from exact and phrase to phrase and broad, and you move up the awareness scale into more exploratory keywords. The solution and problem aware searches. Things like how do I solve this or best way to do X, the research phase stuff. PMAX is definitely optional. Where I've seen it work best is when there's a one-time purchase product where, like for example, with lease buyout, if they buy out their lease, they don't need to do it for another 3 years if they have a lease, or they probably don't have a lease. So repeat purchases are rare, and PMAX is very notorious for doing heavy retargeting, which makes that business have PMAX as like one of the top performing campaigns. But if you sell something that's on a low subscription and it's easy to get repeat purchases, you need to be a bit more careful with PMAX or potentially not use it at all. So once the search platforms literally will not take any more budget and you desperately need to scale more because it's working really well, that's when you move on to stage 3, which is actually creating the demand yourself. This involves cold audiences in demand gen, meta ads, and also LinkedIn ads. You're reaching the unaware and the problem aware crowd by speaking directly about their problems, putting a name to it if they haven't ever thought about it, and slowly getting them to search all these queries that then goes to your phase 1 and phase 2 campaign structures. This is the hardest to set up and track because clicks easily get lost and signals almost become noise when you aren't sure what drove what. Like for example, if you're running 3 separate demand generation campaigns, a big question is, what is the most efficient campaign to put extra budget in? I'm going to go over how to solve that later in this video. Now, I want to touch a bit about campaign structure because there's a lot of debates on whether you want campaign budget optimization, which is you set the budget on the campaign level, or ad set budget optimization, where you set the budget on the ad set level. Because again, each campaign, it goes in a tree of a campaign houses ad groups, and then ad groups fork into ads, right? And I just want to say none of that really matters. All that matters is once the ad gets shown to the audience, that you set it up in a way where the messaging of the ad and the landing page and the audience all match all together. And whatever structure you make that in, it doesn't freaking matter because your prospects don't care what your account setup looks like. They care whether the ad resonates with them and whether it's relevant to them in the first place. Where search campaigns become a bit more complex is you also have to manage the keyword aspect of like where do you actually show up in the auctions, right? And there's also several different types of bidding that you could do, which I'm going to go over next. So something to note about search campaigns is the match type of the keywords that you're bidding on. We already know that keywords can be part of different awareness levels. You could also set the keywords to match on different strictness, right? So exact match is going to try to look for the exact string of the keyword. Phrase match is going to look for that string and any additional details in front or behind it. And then broad is actually going to look at the semantic value and meaning behind that keyword and try to find similar, phrases and similar topics. So it doesn't look at the actual string as much. And what's been happening in the past couple of years is each one of these almost becomes the looser version of the previous one. So exact match right now acts like a phrase match through close variants, and the phrase match acts like broad through close variants as well. So what you're seeing with like AI overviews coming into play is people are searching more long tail keywords. They're just yapping and like, kind of writing like a whole freaking essay. So that's why exact match is working a bit less, but it's still powerful because once someone is ready to buy something, they just search for that damn thing. They, so exact match is still going to work, but it's going to work less and less, and it might phase out completely over time. So probably one of the most important things about running paid ads, which is overlooked, is conversion track. And it is so crucial because that is how the algorithm decides whether it's doing a good job. And, you could have everything set up correctly. You might have the best landing page, the best creative, you're targeting the right audience. But if the algorithm's running blind, it's never going to know that. It's not going to be able to optimize towards it, and your campaigns will never increase in efficiency. If anything, they might just be very volatile because it just, keeps spraying and praying that something will catch on. It's starved for signals. So with a new account, what I would typically do is set up as much conversions as possible, and yes, double count and over report, because it's easier to trim the amount of conversions that you're sending to the platform as opposed to starve it and barely give it anything, right? So I'm setting up conversion actions for things like key page visits. Like, are they looking at the contact us page? Are they looking at the request demo page? Are they just, by themselves clicking into it after going to the original page that you send them to? Because that to me shows some level of intent. Then any kind of form fills or demo requests, those are really high value and important conversions to send back, because that literally shows them raising their hand saying, I want to know more about what you're selling. And probably the highest intent I would go with a conversion event is a qualified lead that was just, checked internally that yes, this person not only filled out a form, but they're also someone that we would potentially see ourselves working with, or they completed a demo. So those will typically be offline conversions because they're not automatically processed through the web, right? Like someone might submit a demo request, but your team needs to go and have that meeting with the person and then check off that meeting happened. So with offline conversions, it comes into the ad platforms directly from whatever CRM you're using, like HubSpot as an example. And those are typically one of the highest value signals you can send, because not only are you saying, yes, this is a high intent person, but you could also send additional qualifying info like their email, their phone number, etc., for the ad platforms to be able to match in their platform. Now, this easily rolls into bidding, which is the method by which the machine decides where to spend the money. So again, in the beginning, what I'm doing is I'm just setting up all conversions I can. I'm putting everything as primary action, which means that all of it is going to be used for optimization. And then I'm just running a max click campaign, which tells the algorithm, hey, get me as much clicks as you can on these high intent keywords that I did research on and believe should convert on my page with my offer. You're probably going to get your initial conversions on the key page views and the engaged sessions. You want to pick the conversion event that has around 50 events happening per week. 20 to 50 is fine, but less than 20 per week and it's just not enough signals. And then more than 50 might be diluted signals, which might not be as effective. So there is a nice delicate balance here. Once you raise budgets or the account gets efficient enough where now you get enough leads or form fills, let's say at least 10 to 20 a week, then you could slowly phase out the page engagement and key page visit conversions and just focus on the next level. Because again, what that does, it just gives the algorithm higher quality signals. But the key thing is the algorithm always needs conversions. So if you are just starved of conversions, you need to go a step lower. If you're doing great, like you could test, going to the next stage and trying less conversions, but higher quality conversion. And then finally, if you're rocking and rolling and you're seeing 10 to 20 qualified leads come in per week, then you are ready to go to max conversions just on the qualified leads. And that's when the account should be just taking off. Like you should be feeling like a wizard at this point. And then finally, and I would only go to this next stage if your cost per lead is relatively low or you have a decent enough budget, because this next one is actually going to be a restrictive bidding strategy where you're trying to make the account more efficient by telling the algorithm, hey, I only want to pay this amount per this conversion. So if you're not confident that you could deliver on that, then, I'd rather have you save the budget. So with the target cost per action, you're more likely to be target constrained as opposed to budget restrained, because even if the algorithm feels like it could, serve your ads to more people, you're going to keep it capped to keep your campaigns running at a certain efficiency. So the bidding we just went over, it primarily relates to search campaigns, but for social campaigns, it is very similar. Instead of max clicks, you're probably going to be just spending on a traffic campaign or awareness campaign. There you could only bid for one conversion at a time as opposed to the search campaigns. So you're just going to need to make different campaigns for the different conversion actions that you're going to try. So one thing that I feel like almost no one talks about, and it's almost like this silent truth that only experts know, is paid ads is a bit of a black box. Like the system that we talked about, like, you have inputs, system, outputs. The system itself, you never have full visibility over what the heck is going on there. It's Google and Meta and LinkedIn with their own engineering teams, which is like, hundreds of people, smartest people in the world. They're building these algorithms to decide how to spend your money. And, like there's reps that just don't know their own systems because those companies are so big, right? So again, you're working with like a black box, and like, yes, I could tell you best practices and things that have worked for me in the past. You could listen to, other ad strategists and see what they say. But at the end of the day, like the only thing that really is the truth, the source of truth, is how your own account reacts to the strategies you implement, right? So what I'm trying to get at is trust everything with a grain of salt. You need to go and, make a hypothesis and go test it. And I'm going to actually share the reason why that thinking results in a lot of growth, is because that's the only way you could approach this. So there are a couple of things that are completely solid that you could always trust, and that is going to be high intent search conversions. So, if you know exactly what you're selling and what someone is searching when they're looking for that thing, you could trust that those keywords are going to be good, right? Also, hard metrics like cost per lead by campaign. If you know for a fact that you got a lead from this campaign and it's spent that much, like, those are hard numbers you could measure. Ad engagements like click-through rate, page engagement, like how long people stay on your page after they came from the ad. Those are all things that typically should be accurate. And finally, correlational analysis. If something in your account either went up or down and it happened right after you did something, right? Like you made a big change, I would say it's safe to assume that whatever you did resulted in that change. So I already touched base on this a little bit, but the scientific method is going to be your friend. You want to picture yourself as a scientist that is trying to uncover, a new challenge. And you have a lot of unknown variables, right? And the way to move forward is to run very specific controlled tests where you have a hypothesis and you are deciding what would be the statistical significance you're looking for to determine whether that hypothesis is true or not, right? So this is, the main way that I currently run my accounts, especially the big ones where there's a lot to lose. You don't want to go and make crazy changes and, be in a position where you're stuck, where your performance is down and you've done so much that you don't know what caused the drop, right? And the worst is when you actually remember all the changes you've done, you revert it, and the account is still down just because you now lost all the learnings from the momentum you had before. And now you don't know if you just need to give it more time or if you need to have a completely different account strategy. That is a nightmare for paid ads. So definitely, try to be careful with what changes you're making. But also, if you're in the very beginning stages, if you're just setting up your account, you're already at the ground floor, so you don't have anything to lose. You could go with like a blitz tactic where you're making a lot of changes. You're making, a lot of hypotheses at the same time. There's multivariables. That's fine. And, you could just keep doing that until you see some level of progress. And then you could slowly relax and, give things more time and start doing the one variable tests. But I would say the core suggestion I have regarding anything you do is you need to document every single change you make in an account, because you feed that into the LLM and then it has context of not only what has been done in an account, but if you hook it up to your CRM, it also will see the effect of that on your business. and then you hook it up to the ad accounts, and now you see, how the auctions are performing and how your campaigns are trending within the platform, and just piece everything together to make a story for you on what the next changes should be. And that brings me to the final part of all this, and how I'm going to justify calling this mini course for engineers is systemizing it. Everything we talked about, you could put it into a repo. You make all the connections with the ad accounts, like I mentioned, and your source of truth, the CRM. You hook it up to all the platforms that are important, and you basically have one place for everything related to your paid ad strategy. So I would build the tracking foundation before you start anything else. You want to pull the UTM values from the CRM that you're using. If you have it, if you don't, you're gonna need to start that from scratch. But pulling the UTM values helps you just build out the first rudimentary reports that you need to know how your account performance has been doing historically. I have a video that goes into this in more depth, but what you really need is a marketing stats view that shows you lead volume by source and campaign by date, efficiency stats that join spend and revenue for true cost per lead and ROI, and funnel stats for conversion quality by channel. So once you set this up, you're gonna have a baseline for where your account currently is. Then you're gonna want to do a tracking audit. See what your current conversion tracking looks like. If you're missing signals on the lower end or higher end of the funnel, and what your volume of conversion looks like right now, and whether that needs to go up or not. I run a lot of my offline conversion tracking and uploads directly through my custom apps as well. Because again, tools like HubSpot, they have a good integration for some ad accounts like Google Ads, but not for others like Bing Ads. So that's where having your own could be useful. Then you're also going to want to have your weekly automated reports set up so you know on a specific day how the trend looks like for the previous week compared to the week before. So you just have like a pulse check on how your account's running. I use it as a weekly meeting with my clients to share on our progression in the account. And then you also want to have a strategy log where you are able to easily document what you do on a day-to-day basis in the account, so that way the LLM can cross-reference that and also your performance in the ad accounts, and then also your internal CRM, and piece together a story on why your account is going the wrong way or it's going the right way. And then finally, you could also use the custom app to stage creative. You could pull all the different engagement metrics and creative metrics from the platforms to help your creative team understand what kind of messaging resonates and what they should iterate and double down on in terms of concepts. Well, a workflow that you might have with Claude is just coming in on Monday and saying, hey, check the performance last week. If you see any anomalies, share them with me, and then slowly going through the process of seeing what next optimizations you could do. But also be careful, because it will agree with anything you say. So that's why it's important to potentially have a strategist on board that can give some advice based on their experience, so you have a higher success rate with your tests. The principles I share in this video are the same exact ones that helped me scale my clients up to 100% year over year. If you're interested in running your ads profitably for your tech startup, just book the call below, and love to see what you guys have going on. If you thought this video was helpful, please subscribe, and I'm gonna have more cool videos just like this. I'll see you.